Estimate 402-560-6197. It's not just Lincoln, Waverly, and the surrounding area anymore. It's also Seward and Milford with no trip charges. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another edition of the Big Ten Show. And I am joined by a special guest today. Now, before I officially bring him on, I want to give a shout out, okay, because the Big Ten Show is brought to you by Jacobson, the Jacobson Seed Company. Okay, and tell you what they're all about. Your healthy hybrid advantage. Farmers, thank you for watching the Big Ten Show, but we can give you more than just great Big Ten coverage. We can help you with your fields. Check out jacobsonseed.com. Jacobson Seed, your healthy hybrid advantage. All right, let me bring on my guest. This man was a running back at the University of Oregon, a two-time All-American while he sported the Ducks uniform, played 11 years in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, was a Pro Bowler, and now is a host on the Believe Podcast Network, the Carolina Panthers podcast. Mr. Jonathan Stewart, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. Nice to formally meet you.
Absolutely.
I'm not really sure. I'm not quite sure if did you tackle me at some point in 2011?
I'm sure I tried. Now, whether I was successful or not, I don't know. We'd have to watch the tape, I guess. You were a hard guy to bring down and catch. I know that for sure.
You were definitely. I mean, I looked at the stats, and you had a 1.5 sacks against us, 2011, and that's not an easy task because, as I remember, there was one run that Cam had a zigzag
I remember
run, and it was his rookie year, I think, right? Had to be his rookie year.
It might have been either rookie or second year.
Yeah, but yeah, he was zigzagging across the field, and so it was a hard task. It was definitely a hard task to sack that guy in the backfield.
Dude, it's crazy that you remember that because as soon as you said Carolina Panthers 2011, I knew the game you were talking about.
Yeah.
I actually stayed up and watched Stanford and USC play late the night before, so I was a little tired going into that game. I was like, oh man, how am I going to play? I remember a couple things about that day. I remember Cam Newton is the biggest quarterback I've ever seen in my life. Okay, him and Ben Roethlisberger, but he looked bigger to me. And that stupid run. And when you're on the other side of the ball, you say the word stupid instead of zigzag because, I was so exhausted. And then he ended up scoring a touchdown. And it was a phenomenal play by a phenomenal athlete. I remember that all too well.
Yeah, man. But kudos to you, man, on your career. You're a baller at Nebraska. As I was, doing just my background, Marlon Lucky.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yep.
Ndamukong Suh.
Yep.
Just guys that I remember from the U.S. All-American Army Bowl, and great guys. And Ndamukong, everybody knows his success. But I never really found what was Marlon Lucky like in college. I remember practicing with him, and just seemed like a good guy. I know. Did he get injured while he was at college, or what happened?
He was a good dude. He was a real nice dude. Now, my experience with him, he was either 2 or 3 years younger than me. So younger guys, as you know, they tend to be a little bit more quiet until they become an upperclassman. During my time with him, he was a nice dude, good dude, quiet. I think I don't remember if he got hurt or not. That doesn't sound familiar to me, but I was so busy my first 2-3 years in the league with my head spinning while he was in Nebraska. Maybe he did. My experience with him was he seemed like he was trying to find his stride and trying to, because he had all the athletic ability in the world, just trying to find that physical side of running the ball. So that was my limited experience with him at Nebraska. And then Suh was a young guy as well. He was a freaking monster. Okay. He was already one of the strongest guys in the weight room as a freshman. When you did one-on-one Oklahoma drill, nobody on the offensive side wanted to go against him. So you could kind of see what was coming with Suh.
Yeah. At the All-American game, they told him to play offensive line, and he hated it. And I remember, I don't remember exactly word for word, but he was pissed and did not want any parts of playing offensive line. And he made people pay in practice. like the
Dude.
little extended practices that we had. He made his presence made felt. So, but man, Nebraska, the Big Ten, it's all new to me. So it's great to be on this show because you're an expert on the Big Ten.
So, as a former Oregon running back, proud alum, you mentioned it. All right, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, coming to join the Big Ten. Now, there's 18 teams. The Big Ten is all the way from Eugene to LA to Lincoln to Piscataway, New Jersey. Okay, and we can chat more in depth about this, and I look forward to it. But just your initial thoughts when you think about going to Wisconsin, maybe in November. And I got the schedule in front of me, but just playing some of these Big Ten teams during the season, them coming out to Eugene. By the way, Eugene was actually, of all my recruiting visits that I took, I actually grew up in southeastern Washington. Okay. So that was actually my favorite recruiting visit of all the visits that I took. Don't tell people in Lincoln that. But I really enjoyed that recruiting visit. Okay. And I watched them play Wisconsin in the offseason. That was when Joey Harrington scored the late TD quarterback sneak, and they ended up trouncing Colorado in the Fiesta Bowl, finished number 2 in the country later that year. So I had an amazing experience in Eugene. But what are your thoughts as you come into the Big Ten, playing some of these teams, and what you guys think it's going to be like?
Man, to be honest, I don't know. But what I hope for is everything, that points to the direction of why it all happened, right? And you look at Dan Lanning and his situation. I mean, he's actually probably got one of the best coaching jobs right now in college football. His team, the last 2 years in recruiting, they've knocked it out of the park. Last year they had a 1 5-star, but many 4-star recruits. And people can argue 5-star, 4-star, what's the big difference? Some guys don't really pan out, and that 5-star, status. So the more 4-stars you have, the better chances of you actually finding a player. So I guess with Dan Lanning, the reason why he stays at Oregon is because of the opportunity at Big Ten. If you can argue that Big Ten and SEC could be battling for the powerhouse conference next year. I mean, I might be stepping on toes right now saying that, but
no, you're right.
But I think right now the leverage, of adding, the California schools, Oregon, to this whole mix, you're just adding value. And the team that has, instant success, which I feel like Oregon is more prepared for, in reference to the other schools, just given this year and the success that they've had, the recruiting opportunity that they have right now for him staying at Oregon. I feel like they have an advantage right now to really, make a splash and grab some noise, which helps the recruiting. So, I mean, the opportunity is just, the sky's the limit for all schools. And Big Ten is just going to continue to just expand and grow at large as far as exposure. You're getting Pac-12 fans watching the Big Ten now, and no other conference. You know what I'm saying? So the value there, you already have the media outlets. Chicago, one of the biggest media outlets in the nation. So it's just primed for success.
I agree with you completely, because even before Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA joined, Big Ten schools were making about $8 to $9 million more dollars a year than the SEC schools. Now, there's a lot of pluses to this. Okay, you got the coast-to-coast coverage, which obviously is going to skyrocket media deals and TV deals in the future. Now, I look at it from a recruiting perspective. The Big Ten has no ties to Florida, Texas, California. Oh, wait, now we do. And now the Big Ten has a direct tie to California, not just with USC, UCLA, but now Ohio State. And you got Michigan, and you got Nebraska, and even Northwestern, And so I think that helps recruiting wise. I think it helps for exposure. And it's because obviously the SEC has got the South and they've got Texas and they've got Florida for their recruiting bases, plus the whole freaking South in general. And so I think the SEC is obviously a great conference. I think it's going to be more regional, obviously. And I think the broadness, literally the Big Ten's a national conference now. I think that is the advantage the Big Ten has. And to your point about Dan Lanning, what he is building is phenomenal. You look at the recruiting class he already has this year. They're currently ranked 6th in the country. Okay.
Yep.
You look at the past 5 years, they have 3 top 10 recruiting classes. And to your point, a lot of that, yeah, you got the 5 stars, but a lot of that is the number of 4 stars. Okay. If you've got 3 5 stars and maybe 3 4 stars versus another team who's maybe got 8 or 9 4 stars and maybe no 5 stars, I would take the more good players, so to speak. So I love that you point all that out, and it makes a lot of sense. And for those who don't know, they're probably aware Dan Lanning was rumored to be in the conversation for the Bama job, and he took his name out and he's staying at Eugene because of what Oregon offers, because of what the Big Ten offers, because he's got a young team coming back next year. I think they're a top 5 team in the country next year. So I think he can make some big noise going forward in Eugene.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I think even, the quote that he gave, I think it was something on the lines of, your coach might have left, but I'm not leaving. It's great.
Yep.
It's great. It's a great recruiting tool and phrase to use, as he closes out this recruiting, leading up to signing day. So kudos to him. I mean, everything that he's building at Oregon right now is everything that I've actually been wanting over the last, 16 years, I guess, since I've left Oregon. But watching, the opportunities that we've had to play on national levels against, Tennessee, against Auburn, against, Georgia, these, teams that, are known for being almost professional football teams. You know what I'm saying? So the ability that what he's added, is depth at physicality on the defensive side of the ball. We have bigger guys now. I mean, you look at the UW Michigan game. UW has proven this year to be a physical team. Being able to push guys around, but they went and played Michigan and they got pushed around because they weren't big enough. It's just put, and they didn't have enough depth to take care of, what was in front of them. And so, I believe at the end of the day, the trenches matter. And I think that's where he's starting to really pull his recruiting card, because he has the ties to Georgia. He has the ties to the South. And now that he's at the Big Ten level, it's going to be way much easier to get those guys to commit, because, hey, Mom, you can just come up to, the Iowa game, or you can just come up to the Michigan game to watch me play. You don't have to come all the way to Oregon for a home game every time you want to watch me play. And so I think there's a great opportunity in the recruiting world for him to really make a splash. And that's why I say, the team that has instant success will see this thing as a grand opportunity for the long term.
I think you make a phenomenal point with the type of players that Oregon's recruiting under Coach Lanning. So again, I grew up in the Northwest, and so I don't mean this to be anything except what my opinion was. Could have been wrong or right. I always said Oregon was too fast, and that makes no sense to anybody. But I said they're too fast because they're too small. Okay, so when they would go play in Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, and let's be clear, they beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl a couple of years ago, so it's not like they haven't had success against big teams. But when they play teams with speed and size, that's when they would struggle. And that's what that's what he is facing head on, or he's taking head on in his recruiting. He's addressing the trenches. He's playing better defense. He's bringing in guys with speed and size. So I think you make a phenomenal point. I'm sitting here looking at Oregon's schedule for next year. Now, before we dive into the conference schedule, something caught my eye. In fact, 2 things caught my eye in the non-conference. I'm going to be honest with you. I hate these patsy cupcake ridiculous schedules, especially in the non-conference. But going forward, if I'm a Big Ten AD or I'm an SEC head coach, I want patsies and I want cupcakes, because the conference schedule is murderer's row. Okay. So I'm looking at Oregon's non-conference. Okay. You got Idaho. I mean, okay. You got Boise State. That's not a gimme. And that's the team that's going to want to beat you. And then why in the world, as a college football fan, I love this, as an Oregon alum, looking from Oregon's perspective, why in the world are you guys still playing Oregon State when you don't have to before you get into the Big Ten Conference? What are your thoughts on those two games?
Well, I mean, there's a rivalry there. It's a state of Oregon, and so you have to respect the fans. I think at the end of the day, it's a good, hey, we're not here often anymore, but we'll come by and give you guys a show. That's kind of how I look at that game.
I got you.
And so it's I guess it's one of the longest standing rivalries of all time. And so to cut that loose, it would be hard for a lot of people, especially out the gate. Maybe you might see it wither away, but we'll see.
So I'm not rooting for or against Oregon. As a college football fan, I love it. If I were rooting for Oregon, I'd be like, I don't know about that. Maybe we schedule Idaho State before we take on.
Because it's a tough. It's going to be a tough game. But I wonder what's going to happen to Oregon State's recruiting.
They won't be the same in a year or two.
They won't be this. They won't be the same, right? There's going to be a lot of guys, picking up, moving on, because at the end of the day, they see opportunities elsewhere and money. You know what I'm saying? So, I think at the end of the day, this has to be one of those stints where it's like, hey, this is our departure gift.
Well, Jonathan Smith, who was there the last time Oregon State was a top 5 team in 2001, was the head coach. Now he's in East Lansing in Michigan. Okay. DJ Ungulele, I apologize. DJ has transferred to Florida State. I practiced that and I apologize. People butcher my name all the time. He's at Florida State. Head coach is gone, quarterback's gone, other people have transferred out, so they're not going to be the same. I am glad they're keeping it around as a fan, okay? Now, you look at the Big Ten schedule itself, all right? You got UCLA, Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, Washington, okay? There's other teams on here, Purdue, Illinois, Maryland, all due respect, but that's like 5 to 6 to 7 big-name programs that Oregon's going to be playing. Exciting TV. What are your thoughts on this Big Ten slate for the Ducks next year?
It's very exciting. I mean, it's an opportunity to really see what you're up against, to really see what level of football you're playing. This is the top of the tier. If you want to come to a school and get your chances to play professional ball and get a good measurement or a good baseline, this is where you want to be. To play teams like that on such a massive platform, it's what you dream of. It is absolutely what you dream of. You get to go play in LA, you get to go play in Michigan, Ohio. Like it's like, I don't know what else word to say besides it's the cascade of football, right? So like it's a great opportunity, man. If I were coming out of high school right now, I'm watching what's happening with those 4 schools adding to the Big Ten, because those are schools that are going to absolutely need help. You know what I'm saying? And need help, implementing a new play. At the end of the day, too, like what you're going to have to see is philosophies change. From these West Coast teams coming to the Big Ten, playing in different elements. You're going to have to run the ball probably a lot more efficiently. So if you're, a certain type of player that might not be able to play in the Big Ten, the original Big Ten, you should be a player that's looking to get in at Oregon, UCLA, USC, because it's a bit of a ways as far as where you're going to be going to school. But as far as your exposure to your family, to your dreams, this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, just looking at the schedule, so you're going to be at Camp Randall in Madison, Wisconsin, mid-November. That's going to be a little different climate. Then you just look at the level of competition. You got the 2 teams who are in the national championship game. You've got Michigan, you got Washington, then you got Ohio State, who's probably going to be a top, maybe not even top 5, top 3 team next year. Okay,
Yeah.
and here's something that I love because when
Well,
I
I will
watch,
say,
go ahead.
Washington's going to struggle a little bit next
They
year.
won't be the same. That's true. Neither will
Yeah,
Michigan.
because
They won't be as
yeah,
good.
yeah, Washington's losing probably all of their players.
Yeah, they won't be the
Like
same.
besides 2 or 3 as far as starters. In their coaching situation, Lord help them, right? So
Yep.
Michigan, on the other hand, Michigan will be okay, I feel like.
They'll
But
be good. They won't be quite as good. Of course, who knows? That's what's great about college
yeah,
football. JJ McCarthy declaring to the NFL, Jim Harbaugh maybe not
mm,
coming back, doesn't seem likely. That's going to impact all that. But I Sharon Moore is going to step right in if he's the next head coach of Michigan. He's got 2
yeah,
top 10 wins versus Ohio State versus Penn State. He won 6 games as a head coach last year. So
yeah,
they'll be just fine. It's more about who's next up after JJ McCarthy. Okay, and you look at Ohio State. Like Michigan's probably going to be a top 10 team. Who knows what to make of Washington? Ohio State. They are Buckeye fans are going to hate this. So feel free at Adam Carriker 94 on Twitter. Feel free to at me with your hate. Okay, I'll just hit the block button, no hesitation. Okay, but here's the deal. All right, Ohio State right now at this point in time reminds me of Michigan last year. Okay, a team that had a disappointing end to the season, but has other than
mm-hmm,
Marvin Harrison Jr. has a bunch of guys coming back who are coming back with a purpose and a goal for next year. And look what Michigan did. Okay, Emeka Ibuka is coming back. You add Will Howard at the quarterback position, who's going to add a dual threat dynamic. Okay, Ohio State's got 8 returning starters on what was a top 2 defense in the country last year, coming back for this year. So
yeah.
to me, Ohio State's a national title contender. I'm going to ask you about this because I am well aware of and I know Washington may not be as good next year, but instead of ending the season with the Civil War every year versus Oregon State, Washington is not doing the Apple Cup anymore with Oregon State for you guys. Washington State in the Apple Cup.
Washington State with the Apple Cup. Yeah.
Yep. Now you guys, because I'm well aware of how much the Oregon-Washington rivalry is very real. Now you guys are going to end the season Saturday, November 30th against Washington. What do you think of that rivalry game as a former Duck?
So that to me is the true rivalry, right?
Okay.
Oregon State
Yep.
is definitely it's like the battle within the state, right? But when it comes to them dogs, you don't mess with them dogs.
Yep.
You do not mess with them dogs. The phrase "huck the Huskies."
Ah, there you go.
But yeah. So I mean, this is great TV, and if these teams can be competitive through this transition, the hype is there. It's just it's just made for TV. It's going to be beautiful. And so as far as the rivalry goes, man, like people legitimately hate each other. Like Seattle and Eugene don't mix. They're like basically the same as far as like political and all that politics, whatever.
Yep.
But they hate each other. If you're wearing purple and gold, don't you walk around, and vice versa.
So I got to ask you this, okay? I'm just going to be real with you. I know it's a mutual rivalry. I think it's a little bit more 60-40 Oregon towards Washington than Washington towards Oregon based on my experience. Thoughts?
As far as the fans?
The rivalry, just in general, the fans. Like I went to a practice in the spring going into my senior year in Eugene when Mike Bellotti was still there.
Yeah.
Oregon people were already talking about the Washington game. I went to Washington spring game that same year, beautiful Puget Sound. I don't remember that many Washington people talking about Oregon that year. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying.
And you want to know why? Because there's been so much change at the University of Washington that they don't know who the coach is. They don't know. There's a lot of fan weather.
Yeah,
right. Fair weather, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
that's what's going on up there. This year a lot of bandwagon, Huskies or dog pet owners. They joined the bandwagon. That's what happened this year. And at the end of the day, too, you got to look at it from this point. Oregon, University of Oregon, and Oregon State for a very long time is all Oregon had. I mean, Portland Trailblazers.
Yep.
As far as sports in Washington, you got the Seattle Mariners. You got the Sounders. You had the Sonics at one point. You have Seahawks. You have Washington State, UW. So you have all the Seattle basketball schools because Portland and Seattle, believe it or not, because even though it's cold weather up there, it's a big basketball state. So they might have too much on their plate to be so worried about Oregon down there. So I will say though, whatever it is, there's a lot of hatred.
Oh, I get it. And I just wanted to poke a little bit just to see if it would come out. And I'm glad it came out, man. Don't worry. Nebraska, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Colorado, now Nebraska, Iowa. Don't worry.
I was talking to Nate. So I was talking to Nate Robinson via Instagram one day.
Okay.
When we were first about to play UW this year, and I'm glad we didn't really make a official bet or anything. Nate Robinson obviously played basketball at UW. He can bounce out of the gym still probably. But I definitely do my chatter with a lot of UW graduates and vets and whatnot. Shaq Thompson, he played for the Carolina Panthers, linebacker, still on the team right now. Definitely do my chatter with him. So it's fun, man, and that's what college is all about. That's what's different. That's the difference between pros and college. Is it means a lot more as far as a fan that has had an experience, with a particular college. If you've gone there, if you've grown up watching a certain team and following a certain player, as we're talking about that, I remember growing up. 1999, Ron Dane, Wisconsin, like that. That was my introduction to what it was like to be a power running back. You know what I'm saying? So I think I was probably sixth grade, fifth grade. I'm not sure, but but it was college just does something to you, especially if you're introduced to it at a certain age. It's like this development piece. That if you're introduced to it, it's a special thing that you can carry for the rest of your life. So that, having, UW hatred, it's not so bad, to have a rivalry, college or a mascot that you root against because it gives you something to look forward to.
For sure. And that's one of the things I love about college sports, and I fear that we're going to miss in college football some of these rivalries gone by the wayside. Nebraska, Oklahoma, for example, that rivalry's basically gone. And at one point in time, it was probably a top 3 rivalry in college football, along with Michigan, Ohio State, and whatever else you wanted to pick. We got to wrap it up here. A couple final thoughts. So Nate Robinson actually played in the same state all-star game I did up in Washington. Okay. And I remember him before the game doing backflips in the end zone and just these ridiculous feats of athleticism. Ask him which team won that game. It was not his team, by the way. I was on the other side. But for those who don't know, Nate played in the NBA, 15-year vet, 3-time slam dunk champion, insane hops. The only other thing I was going to throw out there, if you ever get a chance to go, and maybe Jonathan's done it, but for those watching, if you ever get a chance to go check out Winchester Bay, Florence, Coos Bay, Oregon. I used to go 4-wheeling with my dad. We'd take a week every summer. Usually when I got to college, right before I'd go, back when you did 2-a-days, before we go to camp and do 2-a-days, and we'd get up at 7, take a lunch, maybe an afternoon break for 20 minutes. We'd ride 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for 7 days straight, never cover the same ground twice on our 4-wheelers. Just awesome sand dunes. So I don't know if you ever did that, but for those who want to try it out, definitely try it out. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, I've never been able to hit the sand dunes, but I've gone to Bandon Dunes to play golf in the wind, and that was terrible. My time at Oregon was not spent really going outside of Eugene. I was pretty focused, trying to make sure I didn't get in trouble.
I get it. And honestly, I about died 2 different times on the 4-wheelers. Coaches can now hear that, and it's okay. Obviously, I survived. So anyways, I want to thank you for joining me, my friend, and to all the people watching. This has been another Big Ten show. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you. Go Ducks.
The Mill Coffee and Tea, formerly with 4 Lincoln locations, but now 5 Lincoln locations. That's 25% more locations than there used to be. Can you even imagine a world where there's only 4 Lincoln Mill locations? Feels like ages ago. We were all so young then. The Mill on 11, located right alongside the 93.7 The Ticket Studios at 1040 O Street.
Action Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric brings exciting career opportunities for you or someone you know. They are now hiring plumbers, electricians, and HVAC techs and installers to continually build their professional team. They offer competitive pay and full benefits packages that include health, dental, vision, PTO, and 401k options. Action has created a positive team environment for over 50 years. Apply online at actionlincoln.com.
Stop asking your friends if they're hosting a party this Sunday and come for the real party instead. Join 93.7 The Ticket for the big game at Wings and Rings at 68th and O this Sunday and walk away with great prizes just for showing up. Why worry about making a great spread of food for the game at your house when you can enjoy all the great wings and more at Wings and Rings? It's the big game party with 93.7 The Ticket at Wings and Rings this Sunday at 68th and O.
Come see the exciting career opportunities in the world of large ag. Acres, your Nebraska John Deere dealer, is hosting a career fair during our 2024 Ag and Turf Expo. Learn about career opportunities in service, sales, parts, and precision ag, as well as other roles in Acres business support team. Join us at the Sandhills Global Event Center March 6th and 7th or Fauner Park March 21st and 22nd. Go to acres.com/expo24 for details.
Gentlemen, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. Don't be that guy running to the store for flowers and a card on your way home. Hey, Rick Heyman here from Sartor Heyman Jewelers. We have great Valentine's gifts in store now. And if you spend $99, we'll throw in a free bouquet of a dozen roses. Give her what she really wants this year and let us do the rest. Sartor Heyman Jewelers, your hometown jeweler since 1905 in Lincoln and Grand Island. Online at sartorheyman.com.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Okay, it's time to sell the house. How do we even begin to choose from the hundreds of realtors in town?
Easy. We make a pros list.
You mean a pros and cons list?
No, just a pros list. We need someone with pro photography to showcase the house in the best possible way, pro marketing to make sure we get maximum exposure, pro negotiations so we know we get the best price.
This is one of those times where you already know the right answer, isn't it?
You know it is. Ben Bleicher and Professional Realty Group.
Contact Ben Bleicher and the team at Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway's Home Services Ambassador, online at prg-ne.com.
We wait all pro football season for the big game, but will you come out on top? Warhorse Festival of Games is putting you at the center of the action with 2 chances to win big. Earn entries for our $100,000 prop card challenge daily at Warhorse Casino Lincoln. Enjoy slots, sports wagering, and horse racing. Then make your picks about the big game to be eligible to win. Qualifying entries will also be put in the running for your share of the $20,000 grand prize drawing. Increase your luck for the drawing by playing free online games on the Festival of Games website. Skip the trip to Vegas and get in on the big game right here at Lincoln's favorite place to play. And if that's not enough, our $1 Million Bracket Challenge for college basketball is coming soon. Full details are online at warhorsecasino.com. Warhorse Casino Lincoln, just minutes from downtown at Highway 77 and West Denton Road. Why not today? Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call 1-833-BET-OVER.
Load up on meat and more this winter at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese at 84th and Havelock. This week's special through February 6th is spend $50 and get a 14-ounce ribeye for free. Plus, buy one, get one 50% off on Mercado Pasta. And don't forget about lunch on Fired Up Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Locations at 84th and Havelock and 30th and Yankee Hill in Lincoln or 168th and Maple in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
Hi everyone, Kendall Warnock, A1 Automotive in downtown Lincoln. The last few years have been wild, but we've been here for you through all the ups and downs, and we'll be here for you when you need us the most. For all your travels and for your day-to-day driving. With winter conditions causing problems all over town, the last thing anyone needs this year is constant car troubles. Let us help you drive in peace and make sure you drive to work and to winter destinations safe. A1 Automotive, 11th and L Street downtown, always honest answers.
Adecco Employment Service in Lincoln is saluting the men and women in uniform who are standing tall for our freedom. Let's remember them by continuing to donate blood for our returning injured military. Be a silent hero and give blood today. It could save the life of a soldier. This special reminder is courtesy of Adecco Employment Service in Lincoln. For all your employment opportunities and services, give them a call at 467-5050. That's Adecco Employment Service at 467-5050.
Husker fans, it's your last chance to catch your top-ranked Nebraska wrestling team in action at the Bob Devaney Sports Center as they host a top 15 conference matchup on Friday, February